Welcome back. And here we go. We're in the affirmation section of today's episode. And getting right to it, the red electric serpent, I activate in order to survive. Bonding instinct. I seal the store of life force with the electric tone of service, and I am guided by the power of universal water. I activate in order to survive. Very kind of like, okay, if you don't turn that on, you're going to die. Even though that's very consequence-based, and I feel this is more like I activate in order to survive. That survival energy is going to kind of really kick in once that activation sequence occurs. There has to be an electricity that begins coming through it in order for the energy of survival to actually kind of like happen. Bonding instinct. And so that's like creating a bond with your instinct. There's like a physiological connection or almost a patterning that allows one to do a thing. Almost like in martial arts, as you may be fighting, but you're not really thinking about what you're doing next. It's just the training. It becomes instinctual. So you're not really training. And so it's like bonding instinct. That instinct is bonded. It's very much like that martial art, or maybe it's like cooking, where you're not really thinking about how to use the knife, or you're not really thinking about the timing of the stove and maybe doing something in the sink or whatnot. It's very natural. It's very instinctual. So it's bonding your instinct. I activate in order to survive. So that when this survival energy is kicking in, that's when the bond to one's instinct becomes present. I seal the storage of life force with the electric tone of service. And right there, as one is being in service, then that you storing that life force energy, it's almost like that service is creating a pulse, is creating a charge, right? Very obviously, because we're the electric tone. And so that service itself is creating a charge, which then essentially is stored in the life force / is the life force itself. It's kind of creating the life force. And so as we find ourselves in service, it's and that life force too is kind of slightly paramount to that bonding energy, because it's kind of that like in friendshiping or that like connection, right? I activate in order to survive. Bonding instinct. I seal the store of life force with the electric tone of service, and I'm guided by the power of universal water, which is the moon. And so there's a much more hypercharged energy, because if you really think of it, the moon, it can be very emotional as well today, because the moon can be very emotional, because the water is a conductor to electricity. And so you already have the serpent, which is this kind of like sexual energy, and it's kind of like a little bit water and a little bit electricity kind of combined. It's like liquid energy, liquid electricity kind of thing. If electricity itself would be closer to like a lightning flash, then the kind of like sexual energy that the serpent represents, or like what Kundalini represents, would kind of be like electricity kind of thing. And so the power of universal water is guiding this. So this can be like emotionally conductive. This can be electrifying, like much more electrifying. In many ways. So I activate in order to survive. Bonding instinct. I seal the storage of life force with the electric tone of service, and I'm guided by the power of universal water. That feels good. Yeah, stay tuned for the oracle section of today's episode of 1320 Time Stream.